Good morning. How's everybody doing? Bill, thank you for the introduction. My name is Humam Ali, Chief Operating Officer with Guardian Dentistry Partners. While this is not a Guardian meeting, we have a tradition when we start our meetings, we like to start with a shout out. So I want to start giving a shout out to Sunset Technologies for this nice event. And specifically Michelle back there. And of course, I will say this, not scripted, but Sunset is a proud partner with Guardian, and we truly appreciate what you guys do for us every day. So thank you, Patrick and Sunset. With that, let's get started. I'd love to introduce our great panel, although they need no introduction. You've seen their names, you know their companies, but we're going to learn a little bit more about them. And what I'm excited about is not that we're just talking about the the technology life cycle of a patient, but also we're going to look at this from both sides, the technology side and also from the dental DSO side. I'm an operator. I work with practices every day, and some of the questions I'm going to ask today is pertaining to how is this going to impact our patients, and more importantly, how is this going to impact performance and productivity. So with that, I would like to introduce the panel again. Let's start with I'll start with here, Ophir Tans, our CEO of Pearl, and Rushi Genmuki, CEO of Bola AI, and then last but not least, Amal Nurgatar, CEO of Patient Prism, who I heard was celebrating a birthday last night. Yeah? You look great for 29.
I know. 30 is 30.
30, okay.
Finally, 20s are over.
So let's start with this. AI, big topic. This is a tech summit. We've heard a lot about this. Let's start from the top. Would love to go around the table or the panel and learn about how is AI in your organization impacting the life cycle of a patient. So tell us a little bit about the company and tell us about how AI works. So Ophir, would love to start with you.
Sure. Great to be here. Thanks, Umam. So at Pearl, we're primarily focused. Can you guys hear me okay? At Pearl, we're primarily focused on a form of AI called computer vision. That's a technology that I've been commercializing for the past 16 years in a variety of different ways. And we analyze an array of imaging. We do sort of radiographic and non-radiographic. What we're probably best known for is being the only comprehensively approved and FDA cleared product that is able to read dental radiography comprehensively, so we're able to identify pathology and existing restorations and natural anatomy. And first and foremost, that technology is used as a chairside diagnostic aid. So per our clinical trials, for example, we were able to show that we're surfacing an average of 37% more disease that historically has gone undiagnosed. So if you think about things like interproximal caries or calculus or periapical lesions, we all know that these are really easy to miss and hard to spot. It's really valuable to be able to catch this pathology early so you can form a treatment plan. And the technology is called second opinion. So it's intended to serve as a diagnostic aid, point out areas of interest to clinicians, but also from a patient perspective, serve as a communication mechanism. So because you have these pathologies highlighted and you're able to show the natural anatomy and you're able to calculate how this disease is encroaching into elements of the anatomy, that tends to be a much clearer and more understandable picture on the part of the patient, so that when a treatment plan is being recommended to them or shown to them, then they have a better sense of what is actually going on versus the historic reality of effectively pointing to a bunch of gray smudges on a radiograph and they're kind of hard to discern. So we do a lot more on top of that with other products where we integrate into the PMS system and are able to pull out lots of insights from what that patient population looks like as a whole, and daily call sheets and color-coded schedules and a whole list of other opportunities that really service every major stakeholder within a dental sort of organization. But I'll stop there.
No, great information, and thank you for sharing that. I'd love to go back and kind of dive in more into some of these details, but want to give opportunity to Rushi and Amal. So Rushi, tell us a little bit about BOLA.
Sure thing. So first of all, thanks for having me. And really at BOLA, our focus, our mission is on freeing up dental staff to do what they can only do best, which is patient care. You walk into any dental office across the country, we ask them what their worries are, what they're struggling with, and it's always efficiency for the dental hygienist, efficiency for the dental assistant. A lot of DSOs have introduced new programs around, let's say Invisalign or something like that, which is creating more work, of course, for the hygienist and the dental assistant, but they don't actually have more time. So it's causing this huge burden on them, obviously, of course, with the COVID shortage of nursing and hygienists as well. So really our product is focused on freeing up that efficiency for them. And so our main focus on the AI side is the language processing, is the voice processing. And with that, we have a clinical voice assistant for perio charting as well as clinical notes that really helps the hygienist and the dental assistant out. Interesting thing we found, which I'm sure we'll get into later, is really our target with this was efficiency, freeing up the hygienist, freeing up the dental assistant. But we did find that with freeing up that time, we're seeing more charts done, better charts done, and patients more engaged, which is actually leading to case acceptance increase, which is a direct revenue benefit for a DSO. So.
You had me at efficiency, but when you say patient acceptance, I'm excited.
Exactly.
I know we have a diverse audience. Do you have anybody from operations, typical day-to-day operations? I'm sure you guys loved hearing productivity and efficiency, so love to dive in more about that.
Perfect.
Let's go to Amal. Tell us about Patient Prism and what is it up to these days?
Well, we started in the business by accident. We wanted to look at if we could figure out a way to understand where the conversations were going wrong on the phone, right? And that were preventing the patient from moving forward. About 20 years ago, dentistry moved to this direct-to-consumer model where it became a B2C business, right? A lot of dental practices, and especially more because of the consolidation over the last 10 years, are moving to this idea that we can go and directly attract the customer in their cars, on their sofas, through their phones. And so advertising and marketing became a big means of attracting patients. And so as new technologies like Alexa, Siri, and all these were coming about, we asked a simple question when we started the company: could we train Alexa to understand dentistry? Mm-hmm. And what that meant was the field of natural language processing. He talked about it a little bit, which allows us to train a machine to understand human communication, human language, conversation. And so what we did was we wanted to not just take a look at conversations that were happening and record them, but truly understand the full potential of that conversation and see what prevented that conversation from resulting in a sale. A sale means a booked appointment. So Patient Prism was able to design and really build kind of the first context-based conversational analytics platform that allows us to quickly understand what happened, why did it happen, and what could we do to fix it, right? And that too within 10 minutes. We're soon ready to launch a platform that could do it within a minute. To understand that at 9 o'clock a patient called, wanted 2 implants and 2 extractions. At 9:02 we realized we just lost $11,000, and here's why we lost it. So we could actually fix it. That's the promise of AI in my space. The promise of AI in my space is to be able to analyze conversations quickly, accurately, and actually act upon it, right? Instead of just giving data, which is, KPIs are like the new best-selling word in dentistry, right? Everybody wants KPIs, but we talk about KPIs from the standpoint of, is it actionable? And actionable intelligence is where you can take a number, a performance, whatever the metric is, look at it, understand, and have us give insight into that, why that happened, and be able to act upon it. So the idea is of Patient Prism is moving information into insight, moving insight into decision, and decision into action, all within 10 minutes. That's the promise of AI that allows us to help DSOs across the country and dental practices schedule more patients. And if they don't schedule them on the first try, AI truly allows us to give you guys the opportunity to have a second chance to make the first impression. It kind of sounds silly, but it is, right? It gives you a do-over. I'm like, oh my God, this patient called at 9 o'clock and was worth $11,000. We just forgot to give him financing information. We told him it's 11 grand, so he's like, oh man, I'm gonna call you back. And this happens over and over again. Last week, Scott Luna was speaking at Dental Whale, and he said 52% of new patients are not scheduling an appointment on the phone. 52%. That's a lot of leakage at the top of the funnel, and for a variety of reasons. So I'll stop there. There is a lot more to go in, but that's really the promise of what we do, is allow you guys at DSO level to understand patient conversations in a way we can get more patients to schedule an appointment.
Yeah. No, thank you, Amal. And you've touched on a lot of things that are truly what we deal with every day. So you say we want KPIs, but then now you are like enamored and overwhelmed by a ton of KPIs. And then you say, well, and what I like about what you just said, it's not just the what, but it's the so what. So I'd love to go back to Pearl. So we understand how the imaging software works. We understand what it's trying to tell us, but so what? How is this used every day? And beyond the ROI, how is this impacting the patient and productivity of the practice?
Yeah, I mean, what's exciting about Pearl and this technology in general that serves as a diagnostic aid is that the so what, and what's exciting to me is that we have a very strong conviction in the relative near term, meaning a 3, 5, 7-year time horizon. We are going to positively impact billions and billions of patient lives. Because this technology, one way or another, in the relative near term, is going to make its way into pretty much every operatory in the world. It is going to become a standard of care, and it's going to elevate that standard of care. And the reason for that is it's just too effective and affordable to sort of not ultimately serve that function. So it's a pretty big so what. And if you look at the history of dentistry, you sort of find these paradigm shifting moments every few decades, and there's a new technology that's invented and deployed into the world. And we've seen that with the advent of digital dentistry and high-speed drills and amalgams and implants and a host of things, right? And that's happening right now with AI. So we obviously focus on computer vision. These guys are more so NLP and voice recognition and stuff like that. But ultimately, this is a new, very powerful technology that is impacting every major industry in the world, because you're able to take machines that have historically sort of automated tasks and been number crunchers and now apply them to cognitive-oriented tasks, which is an entirely new paradigm and just very powerful.
No, thanks for sharing that. And you've underscored something that's important, is that it's inevitable that we're going to use this technology. And I've been in dental long enough to have seen, things like the digital X-ray transition. I want to ask you if, we have a lot of dentists out there that will say, you know what, AI is the way of the future, so I definitely want to implement that in my practice. Or if I'm a DSO, I definitely want to implement that with my group. When they go out there, search, and they speak with vendors, why Pearl?
Well, I think that there's a variety of answers to that, and I don't want to get into a whole sales pitch about Pearl. What I like to do is stick to the objective differentiation. First of all, if you look at the category, generally, domestically, globally, there's very few options currently, right? There are 3 companies in total in the world presently that have any sort of FDA clearance to be able to show these types of detections in an operatory. If you compare Pearl to the rest, again, objectively available, publicly available information, we are the only comprehensively approved product. And frankly, nothing else comes even close. We are approved for 9 pathologic detections, and the second closest competitor is approved for 1 with a bunch of limitations on it. And also, we started this collection effort in 2015. So this was incubated at my previous company, and eventually spun that out in May of 2019. But I think what we've been able to do at Pearl, and I know you guys are experimenting in this realm, I know other folks in this room are getting into AI, and in some cases, I know that there's a number of side-by-side sort of experiments
Like
occurring.
an A/B test.
A/B test, which I think is totally smart, and I encourage. And what you do over time is first of all, you need to sort of develop these capabilities fundamentally such that they work in a medical environment, and there's a very high bar for that. But then you also have to build the product and the workflows and the change management components that go around that. And I think that the level of refinement that's been achieved, honestly, even over the past 18 months, has really taken this from a place of being this very cool idea to this very implementable, effective product from day one. And I think that we've gone through the hard knocks of all that refinement and have just done it. I think we've arrived more quickly than the rest. But again, obviously, I'm very biased. At the end of the day, really, it's not about Pearl. It's about this technology, whether it's Pearl or elsewhere, is going to make its way into every laboratory. And I don't only say that in dentistry. It's going to happen across every form of medicine. If you actually track the progress in this space, I do, and you read the academic papers that are coming out and the developments in the industry, what you saw, a decade ago was just a lot of failed experiments, and things started kind of working 5 years ago, and now it's consistently outperforming human performance across the board, across pretty much every field of medicine. So it's kind of turned a corner. And there's a variety of reasons for that, but mostly just the technology and the infrastructure and the fundamental approaches have advanced such that this is a new capability in medicine that is going to have profoundly positive impacts.
Thank you, Ophir. And I think one thing that I'll underscore, go back to, is the FDA is a big differentiator when doing research, when trying to compare and making a decision what to go with. Rushi, you mentioned a lot of great keywords earlier, efficiency, productivity. Tell us a little bit more about how BOLA is impacting the productivity of hygienists.
Sure. So when we started out, actually, and when we go to initial pitch, let's say for a DSO, everyone sees voice assistant saving you time on clinical notes and saving you time on perio charting and maybe cutting it down from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. Everyone gets excited about that. I mean, the hygienist loves it. It's the worst part of their day, I've heard many, many times. So saving them 5 minutes on the worst part of their day, they love it. So that's kind of one angle of it, though. It's just, that's really the basic angle on the surface. Then when we actually got into trials and really got deep into it, we were working with one of the top 3 DSOs, and we kind of heard from a few offices that, hey, this is increasing our treatment revenue. And so me being a tech guy, they come to me, they tell me this. I don't know what you're talking about. That's wild. It makes no sense to me. Then I talk to my clinical team. We have a few hygienists who have 15 plus years. And they explained to me how that would work with an increase in patient education, because they're actually hearing the numbers out loud. The patients are actually more engaged in what their perio scores are, what a 5 means versus what a 3 means, what all this bleeding points mean. Really engages the patient. Plus they're freed up, and so they're actually going a little more in depth into the chart. They're maybe not skipping over too many teeth. They're actually probing the teeth. So with both of those, you're seeing just a higher increase in cases diagnosed and cases accepted, leading to treatment revenue. So I think it was a really nice story of how we worked with one DSO, and they kind of saw something, and we worked with them. Brought in some consultants to really look into the data of the practice management system and see how this efficiency is playing out over 6 or 7 months. So there's definitely the surface benefit, but then there's that hidden long-term benefit that's really a revenue driver.
Yeah, no, well said. And we have a hygiene program in our organization, and the more I interact with our hygiene professionals, I learn periodontal disease is probably the most underdiagnosed, undertreated, and also mostly misunderstood by our patient population.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing is that technology speaking out loud is helping the patient understand truly what they need, and that's what's driving more acceptance.
Exactly, and just understanding what's going on. Otherwise, they're just sitting there getting their mouth probed for 10 minutes and not having any clue of what's good, what's bad. I mean, if you hear bleeding and you're in a medical exam, you're gonna start worrying.
It'll get your attention.
You're gonna start worrying, exactly.
Excellent, great. Amal, we're going to go to you. There's a term, if you've ever heard Amal speak before, that really caught my attention the first time I heard you speak, which is micro KPIs. Tell me a little bit more about that, and how does that relate to PRISM, patient PRISM?
Yeah, I talked about KPIs earlier, and that's kind of for every dental support organization, every dental office utilizes some sort of business intelligence tools, whether it's your own, whether it's DI, whether it's Jarvis, whatever it is, to kind of understand how your business is doing. But sometimes that's not enough to know, okay, you know how it's doing, but why is it doing what it's doing? And what can you do to fix it? Is what happens with micro KPIs. It allows you to dig several levels deeper into any kind of metric. So the best way I can explain this is with an example. At Patient Prism, everybody looks at, okay, how many patients are calling me, and what percentage of them are converting, right? Okay, it's 80%. Great, that's my scheduled rate. That's not a micro KPI, that's a macro KPI, right? And then a micro KPI within that, of the people that scheduled, how many of them were looking for high value procedures? Whether it's implants, Invisalign, veneers, any of that stuff. That's a micro KPI, right? Within that metric, and of the people that were looking for dental implants, how many of them actually scheduled? Wonderful, okay, well, and then of the people who did not schedule, why not? Was it pricing? Was it scheduling? Was it insurance? You see that there's 4 levels deep, right? So now I know if my office only placed 2 implants last week and we spent $4,000 on an implant ad group inside Google AdWords, my cost of acquisition was $2,000 a patient, right? But now I know that, well, we had 19 clicks in AdWords that resulted in 10 phone calls, that resulted in 5 booked appointments, only 2 showed up. Right? So when you go deeper and deeper and deeper, you kind of understand, although I seem to be doing well, 80% schedule rate is good, but when I go deeper, I don't see any same-store growth, and I wonder why my same-store growth is stuck. Then I realize that I have all the time in the world for hygiene patients, but I don't have any time for people who are looking for implants, right? And then I talk to a VP of operations somewhere, or whoever the champion is, and it's like, hey, why can't you get this person in who wanted an implant? Well, we don't have any room on the schedule. And it starts conversations about what can we do to optimize the schedule so we can triage this stuff better. So a lot of people ask me, is it just about these pretty charts and understanding all this stuff at the very top? But I want to diagnose why. Right, so I talk a lot about micro KPIs, about how do you move from hindsight to insight and foresight, right? You take hindsight, you say, okay, here's what I know, but here's why this happened. Yeah. And somebody tells me, well, I'm at 3% same-store growth, which is a good number this year for most people. Maybe not you guys are doing crazy good numbers. But 3%, and the reason why the 3% is happening in this office is because this office said no to 20 patients who wanted an appointment because you're booked out 65 days. That's the micro KPI.
Yeah. No, it's so profound and fascinating. With this competitive landscape, same-store growth or same-practice growth is no longer at an operatory or at a provider. Like, you have to be very nuanced. And what I really like about your description is like how you got to really peel the onion into identifying all the opportunities. There's a saying we use internally in Guardian is make the invisible visible.
That's right.
Right? There are things that you don't think about that we don't measure. We measure the obvious, but those are that we're not measuring. If you don't measure it, how do you fix it? Right?
Quick comment on make invisible the visible. The prism in that is the reason for the name Prism.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's brilliant. I want to take a step back now, and we're at a tech summit. I'm going to meet with a lot of vendors and others like me. we get excited. We see like, yes, I want this. I see the value. I see the ROI. So now the big part comes is like, how do I take this back to my organization? Speaking from the scope of a DSO, emerging DSOs are growing a lot through affiliations, which means you're bringing in practices and partners that have been practicing in a certain way. So the big C word comes, change, right? So a question for the panel, and I'll open it up, is change management. We're introducing a new technology, we're introducing a new way of doing things. We may be exposing things people did not know about. We didn't know this person that was answering the phone was saying no that many times, but now we do. What ideas, what best practices have you seen from an implementation standpoint to address change management?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So yeah, I think that's the exact story. That's the exact narrative. You go to a DSO, they say, I love the ROI. I love what this can do. The customers, our hygienist staff love it. How do we actually do this? That's the $1 million, hopefully $1 million plus question. Is how do we actually do this? And yeah, really for us, the focus when we built this, and my background's technology, and so I came in like a bull and with just focused on technology, saying, okay, hygienists have been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. How do we match what they're doing now so that we don't have to change as much how they're doing now? So for a voice assistant, that would be matching their phrasing. It would be matching how they're doing things. It would be matching the ordering of which they're going in. And so just to keep that change to a very, very minimal level, I think is what everyone wants to see. And then on especially for DSOs, I think it's really a high touch. People want, they want your software to be available. They want your services team to be available. They want you to be doing webinars to kind of teach the higher level VPs what's going on at maybe a high level, and kind of go higher and higher detail as you walk down to the clinical level. So I think managing all of that and actually being to present all of that and having a discussion around all of that is a huge part of this process of implementing AI.
Got it. Thanks, Rishi. Ophir, what have you found works in implementing this?
Yeah, it's a great question because the change management component, that is the key, right? I think most folks, at least with what we do, understand the value proposition, understand the ROI benefits from a treatment and production perspective. What we found to be very effective is because we service all the stakeholders in an environment, so this is sort of management taking insights into their board meetings, but also front office and clinicians and hygienists, making it extremely prescriptive and simple for each individual stakeholder. So saying like, this is how you operate, this is your day-to-day. Similar to Rishi, we don't want to affect your workflow, but we are inserting a new capability into it. So we are acknowledging that we're asking you to do something else, something different, to look at another screen, to do something, right? And that is a big ask. If you're not coming through with a huge amount of value, then that's going to be rejected very quickly. So being very prescriptive and specific with each stakeholder about what it is they're intended to engage with on a day-to-day basis, we found to be very effective. We have an extremely robust tool set that if we, like we did historically at the beginning, we used to train kind of everyone on everything and do one training, and it was just too much. Like there's too much information, too many capabilities, and really all you need to do as a hygienist is just reference the radiographic detections and see if there's calculus or caries or whatever the case may be, right? So I think that's been key for us, but it's a terrific question. It really is, well, like when I spoke earlier about the refinement that needs to go into these product and the deployment and the communication, it really is about this change management effort.
That's great. Thanks, Ophir. I'll do a little bit of a twist. Go ahead,
If you
Amal.
don't mind.
Yeah, please chime in.
Change management is a big thing, and our early failures at Patient Prism really gave us a lot of insight into how behavior changes and how habits form and why it matters. Because Simon Sinek wrote that book, Start with a Why, and he said, it matters why you do certain things. The biggest challenge we had was figuring out how to get everybody around it, because sometimes the buy-in is at the high level, but how do you implement that buy-in across the organization, especially it's in DSO? Lori is here from Riccobeni, and they've done, obviously she bought into the idea, but she had to create champions within the organization that actually took that and then implemented that across the team members who had to believe that doing this is good for the patient, it's good for the teams. And customer success plays a big part in any software company. We have two amazing ladies from Patient Prism today, Ashley and Maddie, first time at a conference. And they do an incredible job, our team, to make sure that people on the other side are engaged, and that the why they're doing what they're doing is always front of mind. And you've got to make it easy, like Ophir said. And if it doesn't work, Chick-fil-A always works. We send out a lot of Chick-fil-A to offices just to kind of like, hey, if you follow up on all your alerts, you win Chick-fil-A, and it's been wonderful. So if all else fails, guys, Chick-fil-A always works.
Chick-fil-A and their sauce.
Change
right?
management is Chick-fil-A.
Change management. No, thanks. And I think you guys touched on not just change management, but the importance of the partnership to really execute the utilization, right? That technology only works if we're using it, right? And what you all done really well is provide the right data and the right partnership to make sure the utilization and training is there. So looking at it from the scope of other things, we're at Sunset Technologies, our IT partner. Integration with platforms. How does, I'll start with Patient Prism. Like, is there limitations which platforms they work with? Are there IT updates we need to have in advance before taking advantage of the technology?
So far, we have not integrated with practice management systems. We have integrated with BI tools like Jarvis and with Tableau but I think we are pretty agnostic. We will integrate with everybody for the purposes of matching back the revenue. But we integrate with everybody in terms of telephony, which is who we need to integrate with because we need to record that conversation. But there is the lift has to be very small in terms of you have to be able to onboard somebody quickly, and it cannot take weeks and months to get them going. So thankfully, because we are not relying on PMS too much, some of these guys, I feel for them because they have to rely on somebody else to give them access. But as part of, it's not, there's nothing to install, it's all cloud-based. And as long as people have decent telephony, which most people do, we're able to integrate very quickly. The PMS integrations, which we're doing now with all the guys out there, should provide even more insight into what the lifetime value of the patient was that was acquired for like $20. And that's going to be the new frontier for us, and we're excited about that, actually. That's
an exciting next step. Roshi, how about you?
Yeah, for us, one of the biggest things, and going back to the previous question around implementations, is you get that question of, do you work with my PMS system? Yep. And if it's a no, you go this way. If it's a yes, you go this way. It's pretty black and white. So for us, we integrate with, I think, 10 plus dental practice management systems right now to date. We have some kind of special technology secret sauce that lets us do things in a lot easier way and not have to go through the database and all the heavy lifting. But for us, that was one of the initial things we focused on because we saw it in the implementation that, look, if you don't integrate with their system, you're a no. So it was a clear focus for us from the beginning.
Excellent. Ophir?
Yeah, I mean, we probably have the worst of it because
yes, you have
to use everything that we do, we have to do both PMS and imaging integration. Now, to do just the diagnostic piece, it's just imaging, which usually is quite straightforward and simple relatively. But look, the reality of dentistry, and again, we operate globally, so we see what's out there on a global scale, is that it's incredibly fragmented. And not only is it fragmented from a PMS and imaging perspective, but you have various versions of each PMS, and now you have a movement to the cloud. And it's not a particularly open industry as an ethos, although some entities that take an open approach, it's like a selling point for them. I think the industry would be much better off, and inevitably has to end up in the place where everyone has ready access to their data. I mean, this is the sort of practice and the patient sort of own that data, right? Not a third-party company that is a steward of that data. And I think there's some funny business, honestly, that goes on there sometimes. We're able to service the vast majority of the market, but I just feel that it would be really good for the industry if it took the approach of just maintaining open platforms, because that data is ultimately better served being utilized however the customer wants to utilize it, right? Yep. So it is tricky in some cases, but the good news is that if you look at 80-85% of the market, it's pretty much the same few platforms, and then you have a lot of fragmentation amongst the rest. Yeah.
Excellent. We've touched on a lot of things, the value proposition, the impact. There's a lot of common goals. What questions that we did not cover today, if I was a DSO member that's going to come to you after this event, what questions would you want them to ask you? Amal, I'll start with you. Something we didn't cover today.
Well, from my perspective, the question you didn't ask me is, first of all, are you growing at the pace you need to be growing at? And do you have full visibility into marketing? Is it driving the right type and the right amount of leads in your funnel? We took over, a quick example of that, we took over a pretty large client recently, and they were just not growing. They did not grow in 21, which is a very hard thing to do. Not growing in 21 is very hard compared to 2020. So if you didn't grow in 2021 compared to 2020, you really suck.
Something is bad.
You really suck. Like, you really suck, right? But anyway, no judgment here. Well, suck is a judgment. But we were wondering, and they were like, man, our marketing, we need to spend more money on marketing. They hired this company, that globally recognized marketing company, to kind of do this, and so we got involved in the first 2 weeks. We told them that, hey, 30% of leads that are coming into your system are Medicaid callers, and you don't take Medicaid. So you have the wrong leads coming into the funnel. Number two, we told them that of all the calls that are coming during business hours, 33% of them are not even answered. So you're losing all that money over there. So those are the things, like what are the really super easy problems to fix?
Low-hanging fruit.
Very, very. It's overused term, so I don't use it. It's like super low-hanging, like you could eat it from the floor.
Pumpkins on the floor.
Pumpkins, like it's below the ground. That's how low it is. But it really is it driving the right? Because a lot of times there's so much noise in marketing today in terms of patient acquisition. There's so many people out there. And the thing with noise is this, right? Because if we don't understand what the other person is saying, and we don't know enough about it, we just believe it because we know less than them, and so you have to believe somebody who appears to know more than you, at least is more confident. May not know more, but is more confident. So how do you sift through that noise? And we at Patient Prism are really able to be stewards of their marketing dollars, and it's almost like a marketing insurance that we come in, like, is it the right customer acquisition cost? You have to understand your LTV to CAC ratios. Our investors would drive me nuts. I mean, they would fire me as a CEO if I didn't know my LTV to CAC ratio, right? And dentistry should do that same thing too. You have to understand what the lifetime value of the patient was, divide that by customer acquisition cost, and see if the ratio is in the right order. 100% of DSO, no, 99.9, there's one out there that does it. But almost everybody doesn't focus on that. So that's the question you want to ask us is, do I understand my customer acquisition cost? And do I know how to compare that to my lifetime value? So I know what levers to change and pull and drive growth almost on demand is where people should talk to us about.
That's a great call to action. Do you know your customer acquisition cost and the ratio?
Most people don't.
I'm about to send a Slack to our marketing team right after this.
Most people don't.
No, thank you, Amal. Ophir, what questions we didn't ask you that you would want other partners or clinicians or DSOs to ask you?
Yeah, so, I mean, my feeling is that DSOs in particular pretty much ask the right questions. There's a set of clinical questions, like, that typically a chief dental officer or the like will validate. And honestly, the results there are pretty astounding, so it's not a very difficult bar to overcome, especially given that there is such an epidemic of underdiagnosis in dentistry. If you look at the data, it's just under diagnosis, under treatment, every practice that we walk into on day one when we install our software will service a bare minimum of $1 million in historically undiagnosed opportunity just over the previous 18-month period. And then there's the question around ROI, which is very much tied to that. And honestly, the ROI results are also pretty astounding. We think this is the most powerful ROI tool in all of dentistry because you're applying it every day with every patient and servicing a lot more. So I think it goes back to the previous point that we were talking about, which is it all comes down to change management. I don't think that it's very hard to get sold on this product. I think that people inherently understand that there's a lot of benefits that would accrue, but if it's not getting used, then that's obviously fundamentally problematic. So really focusing efforts and conversations around, what is your approach to training? What is our access to support? How do you get folks to engage in this change management over the first couple of weeks so that it becomes part of the workflow consistently? I think is the key piece that you need to make sure occurs. But honestly, by and large, I think people are asking the right, good questions for the most part. They're not missing some big part of the picture here.
That's great.
Yeah.
Rishi?
Perfect. So I'll second what Amol said, but I think DSO's coming to us with specific asks or specific metrics. Coming to us saying we're working on hygiene programs this year and we're really focused on XYZ number. Coming to us with that direct, and then us being able to say, okay, well, this is what we're going to measure. This is what we're going to show back to you every quarter so that you're deriving value from our product. I think that's a huge thing. Just really coming at you with specifics. And DSOs know this, right? They're business organizations. They have their KPIs. They have their numbers that they're focused on. And so if they can come to you and tell you, this is the number, it's at 3 right now, I want to get it to 7 at the end of the year, I think your product's the product to get it there, that's the conversation I want to have.
Just being clear about what it is that the customer is trying to actually accomplish,
Exactly.
which does vary between organizations,
It does.
is really valuable for everyone to know up front.
What is your goal? What are you looking to
What are you
accomplish?
looking for?
Yeah, people will come to us and say, I'd like to place 9 more implants this month. That's something that's quantifiable. Okay,
Right, it's like a SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable.
So let's work backwards and seeing what are you spending? Are you spending too much, too little? Where the leakage is happening in the funnel?
Yep.
And it's all a matter of understanding that, right? All a matter of understanding where the customer drops off. So we kind of come in at the beginning. These guys come in initially after the patient comes in, and these guys actually hit the home run because here's what it is. And so all what we're doing here in terms of AI is moving the customer forward in that journey to reach their goal, which is optimal health.
Yeah.
Right? That's the full promise of AI, and that's why it should be done now, because it really gets patients into the best possible health, and that means all good things for everybody.
Yeah.
You guys, us, everybody else.
We were at dinner last night with a customer that's piloting Pearl, and she was talking to us about how she's selecting practices, and one of them is just a very technology-forward practice, a very technology-forward practitioner, and the other one is just very low production, doing a crown a month. It's just very sort of, and they're trying to accomplish very different things and validate very different things in these different practices. So just that awareness of why am I putting this into this particular practice versus this, and what am I trying to accomplish? It could even vary across locations. Right?
It's almost like case selection in dentistry. It's there's always, what are you trying to achieve and what's the right way to implement this?
Yeah.
That's great. Well, this was a great conclusion to our panel, but I want to look to see if we have any, where's Michelle? Do we have any time for questions from the audience? Yeah, for the audience, if I didn't ask a certain question, would love to invite any questions from you.
For the panel, how do you see AWS playing a role in the industry, if any at all?
In the industry?
And in your selective industries, maybe it's playing a role, maybe it's not. I don't know anything about it.
AWS, like Amazon Web Services?
Yes.
Yeah. I can just speak for myself. I've run all my past companies on AWS. I think that they're a tremendous service, but they are just a cloud host provider, very similar to Google Cloud or Azure on Microsoft. And what's nice about AWS is how accommodating they are to medical applications from a security and HIPAA compliance perspective. So it's very turnkey and secure in that way. But ultimately, not dramatically different otherwise than I think other services out there. But I'm a fan. Yeah.
I would second that.
Yep, we're on AWS.
All right.
Well, I want to say thank you again for the panel. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.